Welcome, my dear poultry farmers. In today's episode, my name is Dr. Godfrey Wamai and I work with Atlantis Life Science. So in today's topic, we are going to look at the various aspects that make vaccinations at the farm to be effective. Welcome. I've been asked a question or questions by farmers severally why they vaccinate birds, and in one way or another they come down with the same disease that they were vaccinated against. So in today's episode, we are going to look at some of the aspects that may result to some vaccine failure. So diseases has a very big impact, especially on economic impact on poultry business, and therefore the farmer must be able to control diseases before they arrive at the farm. That means the biosecurity measures has to be well done and they have to be obeyed. There are several vaccines or different types of vaccines that are given to birds or to chicken, and they are classified. You can have the live vaccine, live attenuated, and even the killed vaccine. So it also depends with the route of administration and also the type of disease that the vaccine is protecting the birds against. So today we'll narrow down to live vaccines. These are the vaccines that usually are given at the farm. So the farmer gets the vaccine from the dealer and then mix it with the water and then give it to the birds. So some of the things that may cause vaccine failures. Number one, these vaccines, they have to be maintained in a cold chain. That means whenever the vaccines are being manufactured, they have to be stored in cold, in refrigerators, and then during transportation, and even at the depots where they are sold, or at the shops or at the agrovets where they are sold. And when the farmer buys that vaccine from the agrovet, the shop attendant must wrap it in an ice or put it in something like a cold box, so that then you maintain that cold chain up to the farm. At the farm is where also so many things might go wrong and make these vaccines not to be effective. The water that you use for vaccination, it has to be pure, because some of these impurities will make these vaccines inactive or ineffective, or make it to fail. That is, it's not able to generate to initiate good immunization in that bird to protect it against that disease. So at the farm, the water that we use for vaccination, we must be careful the type of water we are using. In this water, if you do the analysis of water, there is what we call the pH, the acidity or the alkalinity of that water. It will affect the efficacy of that vaccine. There is what we call the heavy metals in that water, that might affect the effectiveness of the vaccine. There is the chlorine in that water, also will affect the efficacy of that vaccine. There are other impurities that are in that water that may make that water not suitable for vaccination. Then from there, another thing that you need to consider is that before you give this vaccine to these birds, you must make sure that their immune status is strong. Because if you give this live vaccine to an immunocompromised or to a bird that is sickly or is somehow sick, the immunity is low. That means if you give that live vaccine, chances are that bird is going to come down with the disease. Another thing that you need also to look at whenever you are vaccinating is that the water that we want to give to these birds must be taken, or the birds must drink this water and take it in less than 1.5 hours. So the earlier they take this water, the better for us, because the virus, which is live, have a lifespan. The longer it takes, and then it dies. So it dies. Another thing when you go at the farm, another thing that might make the vaccine to fail is exposure to sunlight. That means direct sunlight. So whenever you're doing vaccination, you have to do it under the shade, somewhere where there is no sunlight, direct sunlight. So how do you go about it? Dust your birds 1 to around 30 minutes, 1.5 hours, dust your birds. And then after that, now prepare your vaccine, and then you give these birds the water with the vaccine. Another thing that you also need to consider is the amount of drinkers that you give. Because if birds are many, you need to have so many drinkers so that they can take, at least a bird can take some water with the vaccine. Something of importance is to note that out of all the birds that you vaccinate, not all birds that get the full immunity. So that is also something else that you need to know, and that tells you that if you don't maintain good biosecurity measures, and then there is an outbreak of a disease, the environmental challenge will be so high that the antibodies, which act as policemen, so anytime there is an infection, they fight back. So some will die and they will become extinct. So the more there is an environmental challenge, the more the bird is going to, the likelihood of the bird coming down with the disease, even if it was vaccinated. So you'll come with me. I'll just demonstrate how you maintain the cold chain. With me here, this is a cold box. So you go and get your vaccine. This is where your vaccine will be kept with the ice inside. Then you go with it at home, and then before you remove it here, we are saying that avoid direct sunlight and make sure that you open that vial while inside the water. So with me here is one of the product here. It's called the Dicrovac. So Dicrovac, as we said, is that water that you're using for vaccination has to be pure, because we have said that these vaccines we are going to put in this water are live vaccines. So we have to maintain these vaccines or these viruses which are in this vaccine alive. So some of the things that are in water, we have talked of metals, we have talked of chlorine, we have talked of other impurities. They come and destroy the vaccine. That means the water will not be suitable for use for vaccination. So Atlantis Life Science have come up with a very innovative product. It's called the Dicrovac. Dicrovac is a powder product, as you shall see. So the work of Dicrovac is to help us to clean this water that we want to use for vaccination. So it is a powder and that will mix with water. So what is in Dicrovac? Number one, it has what we call the chlorine neutralizer. So if this water had chlorine, if we put Dicrovac, that water will be very safe and be very suitable for vaccination. Another thing is we say that this water has a pH value. If we were to check this water, you will see it has a pH. So to make it neutral for it to be used for vaccination, then we'll use what? Dicrovac, because Dicrovac has a pH neutralizer. Another thing is we talked of metals. Metals are one of the impurities that in this water. The water might look clean, but there are a lot of impurities in it, one of them being metals. So this Dicrovac has what we call the metal remover. So it is able to hold those metals, and therefore the water will be safe for vaccination. And not forgetting that this Dicrovac, it's going to change the color of this water. So it has what we call a blue dye. The good thing, or why should we have the blue dye in this water stabilizer called Dicrovac, is because once we put it here, the color of the water will change to blue. And then once we give vaccine to these birds, we want to see how many birds were able to get water that was used for vaccination. That one, it can be a good indicator that this bird consumed this water. That means it has some immunity in it, and this bird, but this one didn't take water because there will be no that blue dye. So the dye is just to help us to identify the birds that took the vaccine and those that they didn't take the vaccine. So you start with this Dicrovac and then you open it. It is 2 grams. It's packed in 2 grams, and this one can be used in 10 liters of water. So then you'll cut it using scissors. You'll cut it nicely, and then you put this Dicrovac in the water. So once you put Dicrovac in water, you can see now the color, the dye, the blue dye. Now this blue dye is just to help us know the birds that will be able to take the vaccine. So we'll give it some time. We put it and then we give it like 10 minutes. And then after 10 minutes, this water will be very clean and will be very suitable for use for vaccine. So we get our vaccine from the cool box, and we have said that we have to open it inside the water so that you remove this top cap, you remove it, and then you remove this seal, the metallic seal, you remove it nicely, you remove it, still holding it nicely, like that, like that. Once you have removed that cap, then this vaccine, we are going to open it inside this water for vaccination. So you open it while inside. You can see now all the contents of this vaccine. Now they are inside the water. You can mix it a bit, you can mix it a bit, you can mix it kidogo kidogo. And then this water is ready to be given to the birds. So now make sure the birds are already thirsted. That means that you have given them like 1 hour without water, but they are feeding. So once you put this water at the drinkers, then all the birds, because of thirst, they will come to take the water. And within 1.5 hours, the water will be finished, and those birds will have taken enough dose to cover them. So this vaccine should be repeated after every 3 months, because the immunity does not last for long. So you have to make sure that at the farm you have a vaccination program. So you vaccinate after every 3 months, make sure you vaccinate. And especially the diseases of interest that we vaccinate against. We vaccinate against Newcastle disease. We vaccinate against infectious bursal disease, or what we call gumboro. We also vaccinate against fowlpox. We vaccinate against Mannix disease. So for Newcastle and gumboro, those are the vaccines that we give via drinking water. So you give via drinking water from the first day. Another thing that also needs to remember is that you have to remember something called the maternal antibodies. So the chick gets some immunity from the mother, and within the first 5 days, this chick is protected by these maternal antibodies. So once you give vaccine during that time, your vaccine becomes neutralized by those maternal antibodies, and therefore it is of no use. So if the birds are well vaccinated, especially at the hatchery, and we are told to vaccinate from maybe 7 days or from 14 days, that is the right time to vaccinate, because the maternal antibodies will have been diminished, and therefore they will have no effect on the vaccine. So after that, make sure you vaccinate your Newcastle after every 3 months,